of wisdom that we can collect from you today. Thank you, Lakshmi, for turning on the recording. We will let you take it away from here.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Let me share my screen. Let's see here. Because I'm traveling, I don't have the luxury of multiple screens, so we're going to see how this works. So, okay, good. I can still see all of you, and I can see my presentation. Can you all see my presentation?
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. Okay. All right, so thanks for that warm welcome, Meenakshi. Let me just start with a little story, my story of my life in 2 minutes or less. So I like to tell people that I started my Agile journey in my 20s when I used to work in restaurants. I used to run restaurants, different restaurant chains as a young version of myself, a younger version of myself. And I didn't know it at the time, but running a restaurant is, if you think about it, is a very, you have to be very nimble, very adaptive to ensure that your customers get the best possible service and the quality of the product that you deliver to them, right? The food, the drink, the experience, all that stuff. It's the customer experience, it's the quality of the product that you're giving them, and the speed at which you do it. It's all combined, and it all happens in a couple of hours. If you think about the typical product life cycle of something that is being developed, whether it's a physical product or a virtual product, these things take time to develop. In restaurants, yeah, actually, I went to a restaurant last night. I was here in Florida, in Tampa. Went to a Michelin star restaurant, Burns Steakhouse, and there's a certain level of what's the word? I don't know, just sheer efficiency when you go to a Michelin star restaurant that you don't get anywhere else. You get the service, the food, everything is all timed to perfection, right? These people are all working in such a way where no matter what the circumstances, they have embraced disruption, they've embraced change, and they're able to deliver the product as best as they can. I went on a little tangent. So restaurants really prepared me for a life as an Agile coach. I got out of restaurants, got into IT, which is what I went to school for, and I was miserable working in a cube with no interaction or very little interaction with the end customer, if you will. And I moved up the ranks, became a project manager and manager of teams. And one of my developers, his name is Joe Dickens. It'd be wonderful if he was here, but he gave me this book. It was called The Agile Primer. And it was a little tiny little book. And it described, the manifesto. And it was really nothing about Scrum. It was just really about agile principles, values, and how it can be used to enhance the way teams operate. And I read that book in one night, and I remember my hairs on the back of my neck standing up. I'm like, wow, this was amazing. This is what I used to do in restaurants. We had stand-ups twice a day, once before lunch, once before dinner. We would have weekly planning sessions with the management team. I was a GM of a multi-million-dollar restaurant. We would plan the menu. We would plan the events. We had live events, music, things like that. And we would align once a week for the types of things that we do to provide our customers. And so it was like a revelation. It's like, oh, there's something that what we used to do. There's actually a name for it. And so I went on a mission. I had to learn all I could learn about Agile. And I brought Agile to that company. I convinced my director to get some funds, requisition some funds, so we could get some coaches in that company. And that was the start of my journey. 2003, 2004 is when it started. And I really have not looked back. Everything I do, even from raising my kids, and we had a Kanban board where we would put our kids' chores and homework. They still use a Kanban board to this day. My older son is 34, and my younger son is 27, or 33 and 27. And they use it to this day to manage their work and their lives. So it's really had a profound impact on me and the people that are close to me. So what's this talk about? It's really about change. And if you think about the last 20 years, 25 years, for those of you that are relatively young, you might have been in grade school, middle school, high school back 20, 25 years ago. But I remember, I was not. It was a different time, a different world, a much slower world. And back then, I used to think that the world had changed so much from 20 years prior to that when I was a kid. And the pace of change, it's not just the change, it's the pace of change that is accelerating, right? And we as humans in this world have to figure out ways to keep up with that change. All right, so what I'd like you to do is pull out your phones, scan that QR code. There'll be some questions here in the middle of this presentation, and it will allow you to interact with the presentation and with me. So take a minute, pull out your phone, scan the QR code, and once you do, you'll be in the meeting. Oh wow, somebody had coaches at a restaurant that used to work at 10 years ago. That's impressive. I have a book in me. I want to write a book about my restaurant, sort of how restaurants work and how agile they are, how agile they really have to be. I don't know. I don't care if it's a bestseller or not. It's just something that I've noticed in my career. All right, so I'm hoping everyone is in. If you are, give me a thumbs up so I know you're in. I see some thumbs up coming through here. Thank you.
Not loading up for me.
It's not loading? Okay, in that case, just go to the website, www.menti.com, and put in that code.
Okay. Yeah, so Kumar, I don't know if you can see, but it just shows me the thumbs up. Is that normal?
Yeah, that's normal. That's what you will, because there's nothing to share right now.
Okay.
There's no question to share. So as long as you get that with a thumbs up, then you're in. All right. Thank you, Lakshmi, for putting that in the chat. All right, I'm going to move forward. If you're not in, just look at the chat, and you can go to that www.menti.com on a browser or your phone and join the presentation already in progress. All right, so who am I? Meenakshi already did a nice intro. Founder and president of Agile Meridian. My latest endeavor is I'm niching down into business coaching, so small businesses. I've been working the last 2 or 3 years with executives, business owners, and it's so much more rewarding to work with people where the things that we do as coaches have a tangible impact almost immediately. So I'm starting to transition to that. And so I have a company called Profit Sensei. I'm still an agile coach. I'm still a lean coach. And I as these companies scale and grow, I can bring those things to them. I also am a professional coach. And so as I mentioned, I do some executive coaching. And as Meenakshi mentioned, over 20 years of experience in coaching teams, really more than 20. If I count my restaurant days, we had some amazing teams there. So really more like 25, 30 years. Okay. Enough about me. That's not what you're here to learn about. Okay, so here's your first question. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word disruption? Change. Pain. I love that. Innovation. Turbulence. Chaos. Time bandit. Okay, I gotta ask whoever wrote that. What does that mean? Time bandit. Come on, speak up now, or put it in the chat. What do you mean by time bandit?
Something that interrupts and keeps me from working on the critical tasks that have been prioritized.
Okay, so it steals you away from what you want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
I couldn't figure out how to get off mute.
Yeah, no worries. Time bandit, I like that. Time bandits in our lives. We have many of them. And it seems like in today's day and age, we have more of those than ever, right? Distractions that pile upon distractions and keeps us from doing anything really meaningful. There's a book I read recently called Deep Work, and it talks about this phenomenon of modern day life and how the work we do these days is shallow work. We do lots of shallow work all the time, but we don't have the time to do deep work, to really think about what we want to accomplish and how we will accomplish it. And I find this so true in my life as I try to launch a new business. It's shallow. It's fairly shallow. Even as much as I want to do that, I'm drawn to other things, other interests. And one of the things in the book that the author talks about is how the most productive people in life, they take the time to take the time. That makes sense. They take the time to take the time. They actually abscond from modern society and shutter themselves in some place that is away from things that are going to be distracting, so that they can do deep thinking and deep work. And I can't remember all the stories in the book, but you should get it. It is a fantastic book. Fantastic. So break and process. These are both positive words on the screen and negative words, right? Change could be both positive and negative, depending on your approach to change. My mother is 83 years old, and she lives alone in Manassas, and we need to move her because she's 83 years old and she shouldn't be alone. And she has never done well with change, even though really she has. But anyway, that's another story. But the fact is that change can be both. It can both be an exciter for some people. Some people love it. They need change all the time, and it can be a real something that really pushes your anxiety to undue levels, right? And it's all about your mindset and how you approach change. And as I work with my siblings and try to help my mom cope with this change, I find myself really coaching my mom in a way on the mindset set shifts that are needed for this type of a life change. But really, when you think about it, it's no different than any change that any of us go through, whether it's a life change or a work change or change in how we work, change in how we approach work, the change in how we move from, gasoline vehicles to electric vehicles. It doesn't matter. It's all change, and it's all dependent on our mindset. And so we're going to be talking about that in this deck, right? How do we embrace change so that it becomes more a capability in our arsenal, in our toolbox, rather than something that we have to endure? Pain, turbulence, time bandits, right? It's a pull away from normalcy. How do we do that? And so I'm not an expert. I haven't done it myself, but I have ideas. We all have ideas. That's what these things are about. Okay. Oh, we already did this, didn't we? Yeah, we did this. All right. So disruption as a capability, this is sort of how we define it, right, at Agile Meridian. Builds individuals, teams, and organizations adaptability and resilience to change. And this is so true, right? That the companies that are more adaptable are the companies that invest in developing that kind of a mindset, developing resiliency, developing adaptability, developing all of these characteristics that are the mark of people that are not resistant to change. I mean, they are maybe wary of it, but they embrace it for what it is, right? And there's been lots of studies on adaptability that have been done over the last 10, 15 years or so. And really, adaptability is probably one of the most critical characteristics of an individual's success in the workplace. How do I? Oh, there's a assessment that I use from time to time. It's called AQI, AQ.AI, and it stands for Adaptability Quotient. And the people that developed it have done a lot of studies on what makes people more resilient in the face of change, more capable of accepting change. And one of the key things is their ability to unlearn what they know. So people that don't hold on to what they know as being the Bible, they are much more capable of being adaptable. They're much more adaptable. They're much more resilient. They let things fall off their shoulders. They don't let things weigh them down. And it is a mindset, but it is something that is learned. It's not something that you're born with. Maybe for some people, but for most people, it is something that is learned. This chart actually, it shows the NASDAQ. I do a fair amount of trading and investing, and I thought this was really interesting. It shows the impact of disruptive events over the last 20 years, right? Back in mid 80s or so, early 80s, it was DOS, the microcomputer and the DOS operating system. Anyone here? I'm sure there's some people here that are as seasoned as I am. And so for those people, you know what DOS is. I loved it. Command line, you go and you can do all kinds of things with it, right? But it ushered in a wave of change. People started using computers. It was such a novelty. I remember getting my first computer, my PC. I remember going to BJ's wholesale warehouse or something and picking up this big monstrosity with, 32K of RAM or something. I don't know. It had a little floppy drive and stuff. But I was ecstatic. I could code stuff and I could do spreadsheets and I could do all this stuff. I felt like I was so advanced. It ushered in change, right? It was disruptive. It led to innovation. Some of you said innovation, right? So disruption leads to innovation. It does because it disrupts the old way of thinking, working, being, and ushers in new ways of thinking, working, and being, right? And of course, then came along, the whole internet, AOL, Netscape, those things are, of course, gone now. AOL still exists, but they're not really there. The whole internet boom and bust cycle, right? The big hype cycle of the internet. But think about our lives today and how different they are now than they were 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20, whatever it was. And then all the innovations that came afterwards, right? The iPhone, the iPod, the Netflix, Amazon, Google, you name it. All of these things are a sort of a history, if you will, of the disruptions that have come and gone. And guess what? We're still here. We have adapted. Right? The latest disruption. What's the most recent disruption that is on people's minds today? Anyone?
Yay.
AI, ChatGPT. They're going through their own. Well, we are all going through this hype cycle. It's gonna replace all of us. Our humans are going to be obsoleted by AI. Anyone here believe that or fear that? No. I mean, I kind of do in a way, but at the same time, look at all of these things that we have survived, right? And we have not only survived, but yeah, I don't believe it either. I think I think AI is a tool that we're going to use. We're going to harness this tool, this new tool, this newfound way of harnessing this artificial. I like to call it amplified intelligence. I like to call it something that amplifies our intelligence. It allows us to do things that would take us much longer to do through the use of AI, right? And I couldn't imagine doing what I do now. I mean, I use it all the time to help me generate posts and articles, and I know people that have used it to help them generate books. Now the average Joe can write a book. They have to edit it, but it's sort of they have to guide the AI into what they're thinking, and it writes it for them. Not too dissimilar from a ghostwriter, a human doing that for you, right? So we will survive this, the whole AI age. We will figure out the jobs of the future that are created through AI, even though it is disruptive today, right? On an individual basis, it's disruptive. It's putting a lot of fear into people, people that are honestly, people have lost their jobs, right? People are figuring out ways to automate and lose people, but it's going to create more jobs, in my view. I don't know. What do you all think? You can just put in the chat. All right, so what we want to do is reframe disruption as a capability. Yeah, exactly. The nature of jobs will definitely change. The things that you, as a Scrum Master, I interviewed someone on my YouTube channel a few months ago. I don't know if any of you were able to watch that. It was a friend of mine. His name is Haldor. I don't know how to say his last name. Scatterboo or something like that. He's from the Netherlands, lives in Sweden, and he's an Agile coach like myself. And his last client, he helped them create AI agents to function as Scrum Masters. Okay, so AI agents are doing the job of a Scrum Master. The stand-up, all the meetings. He input all the data at one point in terms of what are they working on and all the stories and so on and so forth. And the AI agent, based on the stand-up and the planning and the retros and all that, is able to update it. It generates all the graphs and charts and things, and the people, they report on what they completed. They have to tell their names because the AI agent cannot recognize their voices. But okay, so he did that, and I was like, okay, what happened to the Scrum Masters? Did you fire them all? And I don't know. What do you think? What do you think happened to the Scrum Masters?
Probably were released.
They were released. Anyone else? Well, it's a binary option. Were they or were they not released? So the answer is no, they were not released. In fact, what happened to them is they learned valuable skills on how to create new agents for different roles. So the agents that were created, they didn't take their jobs. They augmented their jobs. They took the menial work of a Scrum Master away from the Scrum Master and allowed the Scrum Master to focus on coaching the team. So no, it did not result in any lost jobs. What it did result in is more effective Scrum Masters in that case, right? So that was a good outcome. Again, I haven't interviewed everyone in the world that's using AI, but I think that if people are smart, they can use it for purposes like this. I don't see why they couldn't be BA agents and PO agents and product management agents and agents that help people do their work better using AI or augmented intelligence or amplified intelligence, whatever you want to call it. So we need to reframe disruption to see it as a capability. There's the initial shock of, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? And then there's the mindset shift that needs to occur within each individual to say, how can I harness this change for the good of myself, my team, company that I work in. Yes, Victor.
So, right now, data analytics is exploding, right? It has 5 years ago, it was kind of a little bit infant. So I guess my question is, how is it integrating into this whole disruption? Because you see it like everywhere now, because we have so many social media outlets, right? So how do you see that evolving and contributing to the disruptive nature of what we're going to experience with AI as well?
I think AI is going through a hype cycle right now where everything is AI everywhere. So there's a danger that, as AI gets integrated into data analytics, into supply chain management, into everything and anything that it can be integrated into, there's going to be it's going to be fits and starts of disruption, innovation, errors made, because AI is not infallible. In fact, AI has been known to hallucinate, just like humans do, right? Humans hallucinate, and AI is going to because we created it, so it's going to hallucinate as well and create bad outcomes. And so we have to be wary of that. That's why humans are still needed. AI cannot be trusted to do things on their own yet. And when we get to when they can, then that's another disruption that we'll have to deal with, right? We're not there, though. Will we get there in the next 5 years, 10 years? Who knows? That's not for me to answer. I'm not the expert in that field. All I know is that I think humans have dealt with change and disruption throughout our history. It's just that the change and disruption comes at us much, much faster than it used to, right? And the pace of it, the type of it, right? And here's another disruption. So what were you working on when COVID-19 became a pandemic? Here's a question for you on your devices, either phone or browser.
What do you actually mean? Is you asking like project or
Just
task?
what were you doing? When you learned about it? What were you feeling? What were you? I'll just tell you. I'll give you my response. I was working at a client site, and I was actually teaching a class. I was teaching a scaled agile class in San Francisco, February of 2020, and I was sick with COVID. I didn't know it at the time, but I was sick with COVID. I only learned that I was sick with COVID in March when more tests were available. I was one of the first ones that got it. And so for me, and then I lost my client gig. I had this was this part-time thing, the training that I did. But I was also serving the client, and they got rid of all the coaches. Done. Your guys are gone. We don't know what to do. And my client was in the education space, in the testing space, the SAT, PSAT, AP exams, all of those. You'll probably guess who the client is. And their business went to a standstill. So they couldn't do any tests, right? If there's no test centers open, where do the kids go to test? Actually, the schools were closed. So what are you going to do, right? So they're a billion-dollar company, billion-dollar business. It stopped overnight due to the pandemic, right? So what do you do? How do you deal with a disruption like that? How did you all deal with that? That's really what I'm asking, right? Yeah, a lot of similar stories. Transferring billing back to the U.S. due to shutdowns in the Philippines. We have had a client back then. We just started with that client. They were in the manufacturing space, and they were struggling. And this was the genesis of what we call the disruptor method. And the disruptor method is really to help teams, leadership teams mainly, embrace disruption as a capability. And we work with that client to help them work through this disruption and harness it as a medium for change, internally, and they did. And because they did, they became much more competitive. They're a manufacturer in the US. Manufacturing in the US is dead, right? It's what everyone keeps saying. Everything's in China, right? Or India or somewhere. But this company survived somehow, and the pandemic actually presented them an opportunity because supply chains were disrupted. And so they were able to build what consumers needed here in the US. It was actually a boost to them, right? But wouldn't have been if they hadn't been set up for success, if they hadn't changed how they communicated internally within the company, if they hadn't collaborated, if they hadn't made things more visible, right? And so again, that was the birth and genesis of what we call the disruptor method, which I may go into later. This is not meant to be a pitch for that. This is just meant to share with you the things that we've learned over the last few years. Okay, I'm just looking at the chat messages. At work, managing the DNA project with the DHS. Okay, nice. All right. So, COVID really forced VUCA on all of us, right? So this is a term that maybe I'm sure you've heard about. It's the volatility. It came out of the military, actually, the military college back in the 80s, I think it was. Volatility and uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. These are things that in the military, things change in an instant on the battlefield. And so there's actually another interview that I have recorded on my YouTube channel with a guy that's an ex-officer in the Air Force, and he teaches at the Air Force Academy. Fascinating interview. If you guys want the links, I'll share them with Meenakshi, and she can share it out. And he compares how the military plans, and he came to one of my coaching classes, and he's like, "Oh my God, Agile is what we used to do in the military when we did planning." Because it's very iterative, and it empowers the people on the ground to take action based on the plan. The plan isn't meant to be followed to the T. It's meant to be sort of a starting point. So, well, yeah, exactly. OODA loop comes from the Air Force. You're absolutely right. And he mentioned that too. What is OODA loop? And actually, I forget the what it stands for.
Yeah, it's observe, orient, learn, adapt.
Yes.
Decide, act. Decide, act.
Decide and act. Yes, the D is decide and act. Yeah, OODA. Right. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so VUCA comes out of the military as well, right? And so there's actually a VUCA prime that was meant to be sort of a corollary or an opposite thing to VUCA, and I can't remember. Mm-hmm. It's vision. I forget what the letters stand for, but I can find it. But we created our own sort of, antidote to that, right? Being more adaptable can reframe VUCA from an adversary to an ally. How do you do that, right? So, around 20 years ago, and still today, a lot of companies they operate this way, right? Detailed. How many of you are coaches in the room? I'm sure many of you are coaches, Agile coaches, right? And you're being brought into a company to help them adopt Agile ways of working. And this won't go away. It won't die. The annual plans, it should die because there's no value in it, because what you don't know what the world is going to look like a year from now, right? And so the companies that are most able to deal with the changes in the marketplaces are those that plan enough, just enough, and adapt their planning as they go, right? Like the military, like companies that are, of course, more adaptable. So adaptive skills, building collaboration and influence, tackling work dynamically with innovation, becoming flexible in the application of change. So these are all platitudes. What do they mean? It's really, at the heart of it, when you talk about what does it mean to be more adaptive, I'm going to ask you that. What does it mean to be more adaptive as a team? Before I give you all the answer, and you can just put it in the chat, or you can just shout out. We don't have that many people in here, I don't think. I don't know. Yeah, more ready to respond to changes quickly. So teams that are more adaptable, they're actually really are teams. I think teams is an overused word too in most companies. People put people together and say, okay, there's a team, go their team, go work with them and make them deliver whatever, coach them to deliver this stuff. But the thing is, they haven't really had a chance to become a team yet. And a team, a team is one that trusts each other, that can rely on each other. They can almost complete each other's sentences. They know what each other's needs. They can speak for them and know that other team members have their back. And so those things all result in more adaptive behaviors because they're engaged, they're flexible, they tackle work dynamically, they pull work in. And if they don't know something, they get help from their teammates. They collaborate. All of these behaviors are the outcome, the result of strong teams. So I'd say adaptive skills depends on small teams. And organizations that are structured in a strict hierarchy lose that ability to be adaptive because these teams are put together for work and then they're oftentimes disbanded when the work ends. And so you don't have that, you're not able to build that resilience inside of the team. So again, it's just another way to package what we do as Agile coaches and organizational change agents. But it's very important that we recognize it. Okay. All right, it's moved beyond the nice to have. It's really important that we embrace it and that we figure out ways to inculcate the companies that we serve, right? Either as an external consultant, as an internal employee, whatever it is, we need to figure out ways that we can exert our influence to make those types of changes within the organization. So, we have a quiz on our website. You're welcome to go and take it. It's what we call the Disruptor Quiz. It's a very short quiz. If you go to our website, click on Take the Quiz, you'll be able to determine, are you a disruptor or are you likely to be disrupted? And it's what we have seen over the last 15 or 20 years, behaviors that are inherent. And if you answer the quiz honestly, you will get a reasonably honest response, right? And some people are maybe more hesitant to change, right? As we talked about earlier. And the Disruptor Quiz will likely uncover that. And then it's about, what do you do about it, right? Okay. Companies that have disruptor, we talked about this before in that slide, the NASDAQ slide, right? These companies, many of them are now some of the biggest. They have revenue in excess of countries. You talk about Amazon, right? They're the third biggest company in the world. Microsoft, the biggest company in the world. Apple, the second biggest. Zoom isn't quite $1 trillion company yet, but they're trending in that direction. And these companies all disrupted their industries, their individual industries. OpenAI, of course, right? They're the latest. They intentionally prepared to do this. It wasn't chance that Amazon is what they are, that they've been able to dominate the retail landscape across the world, right? Their supply chain is second to none in the world. So when you think about it that way, it's like, oh my God. And what's common about these companies that we've seen is it's the leadership facilitates this continuous improvement mindset. They're not reliant on past successes. They cultivate the ability for the people in the company to unlearn what worked for them in the past. Because, hey, everything is in the past. AI is now the disruptor. We've got to unlearn how we worked before, and we have to embrace this new technology and make it part of the way we work, right? So leadership is the key. to all this. And I'm sure I'm not saying anything brilliant here. You all know this, that leadership is the key. Cultural and leader-supported capability to continuously learn and improve who we are, what we do, allows us to spend more time looking forward to the next great opportunity. Now, that is an actual quote by one of our clients, right, that have gone through this cycle of learning how to be disruptors, learning how to embody this disruptive mindset, if you will, and always looking to improve mindset. It's not new. It's been around for a long time. The whole lean movement was all about that, right? If any of you have read Eli Goldratt's book, The Flow, it's all about continuous improvement. The whole story, the main character in that story is about his journey becoming a lean, adaptive, and lean, adaptive leader. So what is old is new again. And of course, these are the companies that are disrupted. And Neiman Marcus, Hertz. Hertz is still around, but they filed for bankruptcy. They couldn't keep up with Uber, Lyft, and all of the other ride-sharing services. GNC is still around, but they had to. Kodak's a great example. Right? They actually invented the digital camera, but what do? They sat on it because why? They made film, and film back then was a big moneymaker for them, so they couldn't give that up. But check out this graphic. I mean, this statistic down here. Annual bankruptcy filings totaled 418,000 in the year ending June 2023. It rose 23% in last year over the year prior. So there's more companies going out of business that are being disrupted now than ever before. And this is true. The rate of bankruptcies has gone up consistently for the last 5-10 years. And that's because, if you're not disrupting, you will be disrupted. And so the key is to develop those skills, those adaptive skills, so that you don't over rely on past successes and models, experiences, and so on. All right, I've talked a lot. There's more here. What questions do you have before I keep blathering away?
Yeah, so Kumar, I think so. I don't know if people have probably seen this, but Target is launching their own subscription.
Yeah.
I think it came Tuesday or Wednesday, right? So for me, I was like, why did it take them so long? They waited so long, right? Walmart was following Amazon, and it's today they've decided. So, right, it's amazing. So, like you see, but like you're talking about, the leadership of Amazon encourages that risk taking, right?
Yeah.
And Walmart also, some of their leadership are seeing the same. But Target, they've been hanging out all this time.
Well, another example is Apple. They just recently announced that they would abandon their electric car project and focus on AI. What took them so long? Right? Sears is an example of a company that went bankrupt quite a while ago. But these companies, they are over-reliant on their past success, the past models of success, and they don't see the picture. And that's what we're there for, right? We are there as change agents to help them do that, help them see that. We should be, right? This is what we consistently see. Organizations, it's not that they lack talent or ideas. It's just that it's almost like we should look at ourselves as, I don't know how many coaches are in the room, but I imagine all of you here are, in one way or another, you are change agents within your organizations, right? So what we should be thinking of ourselves and our role is we are organizational plumbers. We should be clearing the lines of communication that people can start collaborating again between departments, between divisions, between whatever, between teams, if that's where your influence lies. Because knowledge is not being shared in most organizations, or it's ineffectively being shared. And so when that happens, of course, ideas it doesn't matter if you have them or not, they're going to die, and people get disengaged and people leave the company. Right? So it's not that people don't have ideas. It's we need to figure out what structures need to be in place to get those ideas across. And I'm sure you'll recognize this, right? Senior management, Target, why did it take them so long? Why did management take them so long to wake up to a subscription model? Why did it take Apple so long to wake up and say, hey, we got to deploy this 80 billion or whatever dollar war chest on something other than a car that nobody wants from us, right? Why did they not see that before? Maybe it's because, you know, they're not as in tune with the emerging problems of people that are actually on the front lines doing the work. Of course, these are big companies, right? If you can't do these things, and of course, it doesn't matter how smart the people are that you hire. Look at the latest examples at Google. I mean, Google has had some serious missteps over the last few months, right? They've been outcompeted by ChatGPT, by Microsoft, right? Microsoft is now the number, by market cap, the number one company in the world, right? Microsoft wasn't always like that. Back in the 2000s, they were the laughing stock. I mean, no one talked to anyone, and their software products were the proof of that. They were the butt of so many jokes. Now, I don't know if you guys heard of the what's that law? Some law. I can't remember. Not Moore's law, but it's the law that governs that how the company is structured governs how products are created, because it's a reflection of the structure in the
Conway's law.
Conway's law. Thank you. Yeah. So they were the butt of many jokes, and I told them at classes that I taught, oh, Microsoft, they just want to shoot each other. Each department wants to shoot the other. They're not like that anymore, right? They have a visionary leader, and the information flows, right? So we need to be doing this in our companies. Again, as organizational plumbers, we need to clear the clutter, clear the lines of communication, make sure that people that have the ideas shine, are given a voice, given a way to show that. Right. So of course, bottlenecks, right? So if leaders don't know what's going on, because the collaboration structures that exist don't allow them to know what's going on, we've got to figure out how we can change that. Right. And these are high level ideas, but we've put them to practice in $50 million, $100 million companies through our disruptor method. And it does work. So I don't know how much time we have. I think we only have a few minutes. So I'm going to skip this and just go to the next section here. Right. So leaders need to.
We have another 8 minutes.
Okay. So I'm just going to go through these real quick. So leaders need to develop these sensors, if you will, to detect disruption. Right. And I'm going to go to my final slide, because what I want to do is leave some time for questions. And this is a quote by one of my partners, Michael Jebber. You know, when a company has embraced disruption, how do you know that? When VUCA surfing becomes standard operating procedure. You know, he kind of came up with that, and we use it all the time with our clients, because we teach them what VUCA is, how to develop those sensors. You can sense VUCA as it's coming. And so when companies, especially the leaders and the teams that are faced with it, right, when they are surfing the VUCA wave and they're looking at new opportunities and how to take advantage of them, then we know that they've developed the capability to embrace it. All right, so here are some other elements. I'll let you read those. And again, this deck will be distributed. I'll send the slide deck to Meenakshi, and she'll send it out, I'm sure, in the meetup.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I do have time for questions. So you can just ask them. You can put them in here, however you want to engage.
Hey, Kumar, this is Srini here. Question about you talked about at the beginning of the presentation about deep versus shallow, right?
Yeah.
And then we're talking about embracing obviously AI and everything that disruption and stuff like that. So the examples that you gave about how Apple is now abandoning the car thing because and Google didn't succeed as well as Microsoft in the. So my question is like, if you have a core competency, you cannot be chasing every shiny thing out there until you develop it very well. So,
Yeah.
How do you balance that? This is my core competency versus I'm just going to chase this because everyone is chasing this in the market.
Yeah, that's a good insight, and one that, I mean, if you look at the big companies, right, and it's no different for small companies, but big companies like Apple, I don't know what they were thinking when they decided to try to develop a car. It's not their core competency. It's not what they do.
Exactly.
But I think they got caught in the hype cycle of Elon's world, right? Elon Musk is a very influential character and had spurred a lot of people to think about, oh, well, if he can do it, maybe we should do it. The Apple of cars will be fantastic. We should come out with one. But to your point, it's not their core competence. And I think there were a lot of skeptics. Although, Apple has earned a certain amount of capital, if you will, because whatever they produce is of such high quality, and that people. I remember when they said they were going to develop a car, people were like, oh, especially all the Apple fans in the world, like, oh, it'll be the best car ever, because everything they do is so great. I think that your point is a good one for any company of any size to really focus on what their core competency is. If you think about as individuals as well, we can change, we can learn new things, we can learn new skills, but at the end of the day, there's something that we're really good at that we have to focus on. And for me, I feel like I'm really good at listening to people, coaching people. And so everything I've done in my career, whether it's managing restaurants or leading IT teams or coaching organizational change at different companies, has just been around working with people, right? And now I'm niching down to small business. It's still about working with people. It's about working with people and helping them focus on what their core competency is. What is their business about? And really articulating that vision, that structure, the core pieces of value that they provide their clients, their customers, so that they reach the right customers and they come buy their products and services from them. And that takes deep thought, deep work. You can't be everything to everyone, right?
Yeah.
What else?
Next question is from Victor. How do you influence management to be disruptive when they can easily be stuck in the old ways of operating?
Great question. I think a lot of it is you're not going to reach everyone, Victor, and whoever else. You have to pick your stars, right? So if you're in an organization, you're going to know the people that are open to change, open to different ways of working, right? And you need to find the catalysts in the organization that you can influence. So I don't know if you've heard of, I'm so tired today. I'm sorry, guys. I can't remember anything. It's the chasm picture. Someone that out there knows what I'm talking about. Chasm, like the early adopters and the blah, blah, blah. Anyone know what I'm saying?
I know a different chasm. I don't know about the early adopters, but tell us more.
Yeah, so this, boy, I would love to tell you more, except I can't remember it. The notion is that there are people that are at the forefront of change. They are ready to try something new when it comes out, right? And they're the ones that are first in line for the latest and greatest iPhone or the Vision Pro or You know, there's the Tesla when it first came out. They're the first in line to put their deposit on the Tesla when it first came out, right? These are the bleeding, you know, early adopters, if you will. And then comes the people that sort of wait. They're still there. They're still excited about the change, but they're going to wait. They're going to let, you know, the bugs, the kinks get worked out, and then they'll go buy it. And I'm in that category. And then there are people that are across the chasm. They're like, you know what, these EVs, I'm not going to touch them. We'll see what happens. You know, maybe at some point maybe at some point when it gets more reliable, it gets cheaper, then I'll jump in. And then there are people even more resistant, like, I'm never going to set foot in an EV, right? And so we need a majority of people that are on the other side of the chasm to pull these people across, these people that are resistant. So if you're working with someone that is resistant, maybe that's not the right person to work with. You need to find people that are less resistant, that are more willing to change, and help them, get them on your side, because then now your team is bigger. You have more catalysts on your team. That person is going to influence 3 or 4 people. You're going to influence 3 or 4 people. If everyone did that, eventually you're going to have more people on one side of the chasm than the other. And eventually those people on the other side of the chasm, they're either going to leave or they'll come along for the ride because they won't have a choice. All right.
I think there is another question from Rich. We'll take one more question. How do you deal with the unknowns in this situation or process?
Yes, thank you for that, Victor, getting that image. How do you deal with the unknowns in that situation or process? How do you deal with unknowns? Okay, you mean in the change process, Rich?
Yes. In disruptive situation, when you try to innovate and introduce something big,
Yeah.
but there are so many unknowns in that situation that you may not fail.
Yeah, I like to think of it as, you know, I like to invoke the Cynefin framework. If you remember the Cynefin, I don't know if you know it, there's a simple, then it becomes complicated, complex, and
chaos.
Chaos.
Yeah,
and so when you're operating in simple, it's simple, right? You've done it before a million times. You can just use an established process. When it's complicated, it's maybe it's more work, but it's still a process driven. When it becomes complex is when you start using agile and lean techniques to do that, because you're iterating through the design and the process of understanding the scope of the work that you're doing. When it's chaotic, you're almost in lean startup mode. You're doing a bunch of experiments. You're experimenting to see what works. You know, it's like you're on a surface of a frozen lake, and you drill a hole. You don't know what's below the surface, and you just drop a fishing line to see what you might catch. And you might catch a great big Loch Ness monster, or you might catch a fish. You don't know, but you're going to sense and then respond.
So you start lean and play safe in the beginning, and then compile your experience.
Yeah, I mean, actually, lean startup is a great model. You know, the best companies innovate by doing just that. They do early prototyping by putting something out in front of customers to see how they respond to it. Google did this all the time when they were leaner and meaner. You know, Gmail was in beta for I don't know how many years, 10 years. And the whole time they were trying new things with Gmail and many of their products on us unsuspecting customers. Tesla does it now. I have a Tesla. They send me software updates on the full self-driving module every couple of months. And, you know, I'm the poor sap that tests it for them. They're experimenting on me.
Yeah, I feel that too, like a lab rat.
But I mean, it's brilliant, right? They're not spending billions of dollars on testing, and it's hard to simulate real world conditions. But now they're getting, you know, their full fleet of cars being tested by real humans on real roads in real situations.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been fun. Thank you for indulging me.
This is great. Yeah, no questions in the chat, but I would say thank you so much, Kumar. This is a really, really great session, and I love the engagement, right? And thank you for making it more interactive, right? And a great collaboration with all of us. So before we all leave, we are excited to guess what the topic is for the next month session. It's again a wonderful topic, artificial intelligence, AI. So we are bringing an author, AI guru. It's a PhD. His name is Uday Kamath. He's bringing a topic on future forward, generative AI trends unveiled. So he is an author for best-selling books on artificial intelligence and machine learning. So that session is on Thursday, April 4th. Okay, do join us. We will be sharing that in Meetup and LinkedIn. But excited to hear that session as well. So, but have a great night, everyone. Thanks for joining and spending this beautiful Thursday evening with us. All right. Thanks again, Kumar. Great session. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.